All right, buckle up, rough roads ahead. Here we go again. So, influence is kind of accepted because people feel its power. Generally, the more money you have, the more influence and influence teams you can put out there. And again, don't think that these influencers, you get all discouraged because these influencers, you think that what? That, oh, wow, I wish I was like that person. They are selected by major organizations throughout the world, spy organizations mostly, to be those influencers. First, they're tested to see if they can be manipulated, and then they're made influence. So they're not really special; they're just a tool of that, the machine. They really are. Now, even if, the funny thing about the machine is the machine has the anti-machine people, and it empowers them to be the anti-machine people. But they're all sold out. They're all there for money, and they'll sell their mother if they have to. So influence has been praised. It has made people rich. The thing that has been left behind is the person that receives that influence. How do they survive? How do they stay themselves while being influenced? And again, it's witchcraft, it's spycraft, it's a lot of different forms of influence that are within those people in those organizations. That is our problem. Now, people say, well, without influence, Donald Trump wouldn't have won because he used that type of influence to win. And again, everybody does. The problem is now that he's president, or soon he'll be president, if Putin doesn't take him out first and say it was someone else, if he gets in there, that's how they're going to cause the flash mobs. That's how they're going to cause the violence. That's how they're going to cause people to attack your deportation operations using influence. The influence is what caused those kids to be afraid to return to school because they believe they would be deported within their school. So again, somebody has to be the bigger person. Somebody has to stop what's going on so the nation can return to normal. What President Trump should be seeking is a quiet presidency, a successful but quiet presidency. Every bit of influence that comes against you that radicalizes another person causes you to have to use additional power to get the same distance. If we look back at that first administration, that's what caused the greatest issues, and that's what stalled a lot of the projects. They've already, I think they've had a couple news articles on some of the immigration things that are being put out now. And they're coming to some agreement. Now, whether it's honest agreement or not, it could be an influence technique. Well, they're saying, well, if you're going to deport criminal aliens, if you're going to deport, the bad people, we'll help you. Now, the question is, the cutoff is the question. Where do they consider? What do they consider a criminal alien? What do you consider a criminal alien? Right? And of course, some other people will be deported. We do have people that are just really destroying our system. We don't have the money to support them and support our own people. There's people out there that are horribly disabled from all sorts of things. Again, RFK Jr. He's run and he's part of a program that he says we want to correct that. I think one of the age-old realities is if you can't shop, if you can't shop at Sprouts, you can't afford it, then you're not eating well. Sprouts, Whole Foods, Natural Grocer. So there's the question of money. So the part of the administration says, well, maybe we're giving too much money for that type of benefit. And then they're going to say, we're going to tell you how to eat well, which costs 3 times as much as what you're buying now. Now, again, I think RFK was talking about, and I'll get back to the subject area in a second, because it may just be an influence technique that I'm absorbing here. But he was talking about also holding manufacturers to a standard. I'm with that. What I hate is trying to find low sodium and low fat. And low fat means saturated fat. So those are the 2 things you need to focus on, is reducing sodium. Now, the manufacturers inside told me I can't sell it if I reduce the sodium. They won't like it. Go buy somebody else's stuff. I've already done a study on that. Maybe you're here to effectuate that. I'd like to go in the store and find, zero saturated fat items. Cheese. Cheese is when they make artificial cheese. But what do? They include all the saturated fat. I am absolutely positive that they could make cheese with just good fats and have it taste well. And then we would have like zero fat cheese that tastes well. Walmart did do. I mean, Walmart's okay. It's just its employees are like corrupt or something. I'm not sure how it works. I don't know if the big guy knows what they're actually doing to the customers in cahoots with the deep state. Because they do keep the prices down. I've given them kudos for that. I've also noticed that they tried zero fat cheddar cheese, but I know it didn't sell because I couldn't even get to buy it. And when I bought it, I'm like, what is that? Actually, it was Kraft, I think, that made it, but they sold it. So we need to figure out how to make that tasty, and it's probably through additional good fats. And that's, again, we have to teach that type of thing. So let me get back to the influence. So what we haven't done is giving the tools to the receiver of influence so they're not influenced into flash mobs and using narcotics and all the other things that the influence is causing them. Rap music, it's a form of influence. So again, I'm not only on that. There's all other types of music. Down, up, well, Mexico up. We got to up Mexico if we want to keep it well. You can't. This is what I tried to tell Trump last time. We can't kill Mexico and Central America and expect them not to come up here looking for jobs. So, right. So Mexico needs to go up, and in Mexico, she's trying a program. The president, she's trying a program where she changes the culture of music. It's kind of difficult to do, but it could work because they have the same thing. It's rap music up there, and up here and down there, it's the narco music. I forget what they call it. It's a type of music. So it's similar to rap music, but it's the Mexican vibe, or Latino vibe. So again, that's influence. And then we spoke on influence in the first administration when it came to the influence of video games, the influence of this, that, and the other thing. However, the right has embraced influence. When the whole thing with those gangs that I told you not to get involved with, and they turned out to be, the worst thing you ever got involved with, because that led to January 6th. Again, it occurred. You can fight it. You can be political about it. You can crush it. You can do it. You can pardon it. But it occurred, and you don't want that. Again, that's the idea. Like, get past it. Move forward. So that type of influence needs to be removed. I don't have a problem with getting rid of the Department of Education, but they were kind of the watchdog. I know their mission was made crazy by 50 other things. So what we're seeing is that an overreach of cutting or perceiving. Well, if there's no watchdog, there has to be somebody that watches what these states are doing, because what you don't want is for them to drop any further in education quality than they did. Most of the poor education states are actually conservative states, and they're the ones that won, and they're going to tell us how to teach everybody. I mean, you want it. That's it. All's fair in love and war. But again, there's an issue with academics. It isn't. No, it wasn't. I understand that some of the other schools were teaching things that you don't like, but they still maintain the academic standard. So what we don't want to happen is, and I'm not opposed to vouchers. What we don't want is people kept out of private education, and then, or you decide what private education is taught, and then the public schools fail. Is it too late for the public school system? I don't believe so. But again, a lot of money was wasted, and that's a lot of reason why President Trump won. People are sitting here watching the billions being spent on nonsense and wars. Again, you got into sex education versus just equal rights and that type of thing. You moved an additional step. Now, Oklahoma is going to have a run-in with the Supreme Court. I'm looking at. I've looked at all the stuff that I could on what the previous decisions were, and it looks like they're awry of those. So I'm going to get back to my influence thing here. Something influenced me to speak about something else, and that could be a witchcraft influence. So what we want is we want people to feel okay about being instructed, about sharing influence or perceived influence with others, to come to a conclusion. It's like what is it in the government military? It was the ethical. You go to what, PLDC, Primary Leadership Development course, and they teach about the ethical reasoning process. It turns out the guy that one of the guys that instructed me in ethical reasoning, did he do it? He probably did, I guess. Well, our lead instructor was actually a murderer. He's probably here in jail, or if he's not passed on, right? Like he was at Leavenworth or something. He raped and murdered they had a relationship. He was raping her, and then he, or whatever they call that, and then he killed her. I guess he got paranoid or something. So I was like, I think I left my locker unlocked one time. And I went down and told him, because that's the way I am. I confronted it, and just to think that I was like, oh, I'm such a bad person for leaving my locker unlocked. Here I'm standing before a rapist and a murderer. I was surprised. It just because he was a really strat guy, I wouldn't think it, but it got the better of him, I guess. But these influence operations, that kind of thing, like, oh, that's okay, or this isn't okay. Everybody has a right to their own mind, but education is one thing, training is another thing, instruction is another thing, but influence is something that robs you of your personal identity, causes you to go out and do January 6th. An influence operation caused January 6th. Influence operation causes the mobs on the flash mobs on the highway. It's been on for a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. But some people want it to happen. Like, oh, you're a liberal, it should happen to you. You're a conservative, it should happen to you. So we have to come together on these things as Americans. And then, we can much easier move with Vladimir Putin, with Leader Kim, and come up with ideas that work for all of us. Again, this was a big thing when I got out of the government. And the Sikhs put on something. And where was that? The one I went to? Was it? I'm trying to figure out where it was. I think maybe it was a Snatan Khalsa concert, but beforehand we did this training on essentially peacemaking. I already received it from Hashem. That's the funny part. I was already instructed on how to do this from Hashem, but you kind of sit down and you come up with ideas that work for both sides, even though 90% of what you believe in and 90% of what they believe in conflict. But that's why President Trump was appropriate. But there's 10% of things that you can speak about that you both agree on. Well, yeah, I would have been the greatest peacemaker on the earth, but hey, the deep state, they're rich, and I'm not, so they won, right? They won because we had all these wars and everything else. So Trump was correct, and I was also behind him doing that. Even with Leader Kim, I didn't feed into this idea where he's going to speak with a despot, because you have to speak with a despot, or the despot remains a despot forever. Because what you start today in 100 years, if we have a tradition, South Korea and North Korea did have a tradition of reaching out to another one, and that was great. And I think there should be additional factories built, and we should reopen those programs, because there's no other way. There is no other way. So President Trump can meet Kim, but what President Trump didn't do is give Kim something. That was his big error. That's Korean tradition. If you watch everybody that Kim goes and sees, he walks away with something. Your people should have briefed you that you have to give something to Kim. I'm not talking like a microwave or something. So we could have said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to open up another set of factories on the east side of your place there. We're going to do some more of this work. And again, that it doesn't erase the sanctions and those type of things, but it's a moneymaker. It'll provide him a little bit more sustenance and things like that, and the things they built in the factory and all that. So our biggest issue is this influence. Everybody's used it. They've even used it in the Cold War. But the difference now is uh, you used to have a little bit of television that would give you a little influence. A movie would give you a little newspaper, a little bit of influence. But now you're bombarded with it, and it's not horrible for someone to be on the internet 6 hours a day. I mean, you could become a brainiac on that thing. How do you think I do it? I absorb all the information. When I was a child, I read encyclopedias. But I was asleep. It's so weird that when you wake up, you're like, I can recall that stuff I read now. I mean, it's a metaphysical thing. It's nothing else. So the metaphysics actually exist. And influence is also metaphysical. And it's really a form of possession. The people's minds are being possessed. We even say it in everyday language. I don't know if they even say it anymore. They can erase everything I bring up. Oh, we have to get rid of that. It's like Satan, I guess, or maybe deep state, or both. Actually, the same thing. What possessed you to do that? Well, probably you, because you're bringing it up, huh? I'll have to step inside. I'm not dressed real heavily. I got the cool man gym outfit. I don't know if they still wear this. They used to, and again, it's not from my day. It was like maybe from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's you wear the black long johns, like the silky long johns, or like spandex or something like that, and then you got like black shorts, long shorts over that, and a black shirt, and then like a hoodie. I'm dressed pretty lean right now, but this is part of acclimatizing. So we all benefit from the minimization of influence. Now, President Trump isn't going to run for office anymore. Uh, it's a good thing that he is there because he doesn't need influence at this point. I mean, yeah, a little bit, but not to run for office. So, maybe he has aspirations of being a political boss or his kids or whatever it is. But the best thing we can do is give people the tools to push off all this influence. That's how they end up on narcotics. That's how they end up being so opposed to a political movement that they become violent, that they flash mob or whatever it is. Right? What's happening is the young people are online and absorbing the influence, and they don't have the tools to fight the influence. If they, if you do it right, then that becomes part of their life. Like, oh, I'm being influenced. Let's see what this person's about. You got to, you could have like a fifth grader analyzing the influence online. It's absolutely possible. You just have to train them, maybe starting in third grade, that they're being influenced. Yeah, Barney's trying to influence you. Don't listen to Barney. Think through it. Just don't listen. I mean, you can listen to Barney, but think. What is Barney asking you to do? I don't even know if Barney exists anymore. Wow, it's cold out there. Woo! Got my cranberry sauce. That was them trying to make me afraid of eating my turkey earlier. I just keep rejecting. They're weirdos. No, what I speak about is real. Whew. Boy, it's chilly. But again, you go out there like dressed lightly, but not enough to make yourself sick. But you get cold for a bit, and then your body starts adjusting. So when it gets real cold, you'll be like, "Oh, this is okay." So we need to restore people's thought process because there's no reason to be paranoid about influence operations, but we want to get it to the point where they realize they exist and all day they're being influenced, and then they might see that corrupt influence trying to take them in the wrong direction. Because again, we've told them influence is okay when it's really not. Influence is actually malicious. Now, today, it's not considered malicious because people like to have that power over another person. Like to be able to hire a group of influencers and spout some of their stuff out there. And the other people are just sheep. Oh, okay. Again, it's probably love and war. Trump probably used that. But again, as president, it's probably going to be a detriment